This story is about my friend Erin and what happened to her on a dark desert highway back in 2018. It's a story that still gives me chills every time I think about it. Erin was driving home from a friend's place just outside Phoenix. It was late, around midnight, and she still had about an hour to go. If you've ever driven through the Arizona desert at night, you know how it is. The highways are long, flat, and completely empty. It's just you, the road, and the stars. She was listening to the radio, kind of zoning out, when she saw a pair of headlights pop up in her rearview mirror. At first, she didn't think much of it. It's a highway after all, but this van, it never passed. It just stayed right on her tail. For miles and miles, it was like her shadow. She was getting a little uneasy. When she slowed down, the van slowed down. When she sped up, it matched her speed perfectly. This went on for what felt like an eternity. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text to her friend. "There's a van behind me for like 20 minutes now." Kinda weird, her friend didn't reply right away. The silence in the car suddenly felt heavy. Then the van's high beams flashed. Not once, but 3 quick, deliberate bursts of light. That's when Erin's stomach completely dropped. A wave of pure dread washed over her. Her hands were shaking. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just some impatient driver. She decided to test it. She signaled and switched lanes, her heart pounding in her chest. The van switched lanes right behind her without hesitation. It was toying with her. Her exit was coming up, a small sign glowing in the darkness. She made a split-second decision. Without signaling, she yanked the wheel hard, swerving onto the exit ramp, tires screeching. She was heading for a brightly lit gas station she saw in the distance. She glanced in her mirror, praying she'd lost him. The van didn't take the exit. It just kept going straight down the highway. A huge sigh of relief escaped her lips. She thought it was over. She thought she was safe, but she was wrong. A few minutes later, as she neared the gas station, she checked her rearview mirror out of habit. And there they were. The same headlights. She could even make out the same cracked left bulb. The van was back. It must have taken a different route, some side road, and cut her off. It had found her again. The game wasn't over. Panic took over completely. She floored it, the engine screaming as she sped into the gas station parking lot. She didn't even put the car in park. She just jumped out and ran inside, screaming for help at the top of her lungs. The clerk, a young guy, came running from behind the counter, his eyes wide with alarm. Just as he reached the door, they both saw it. The van slowed to a crawl at the edge of the parking lot. It paused for a moment right under the bright fluorescent lights as if taking one last look. And then, as silently as it appeared, it drove away into the night. The police came, and what they told her was even more terrifying. A van matching that exact description had been reported twice in the same week. Both times, it was following a young woman driving alone at night on that same stretch of highway. And neither of those other women were ever found. Erin was the one who got away. So, if you're ever driving alone at night and you get that strange feeling that you're being watched, trust your gut. This story comes from a woman named Maria, and what happened to her in 2021 is something she never forget. She was working the late shift at a diner just off Highway 9. If you've ever driven through the mountains in Northern California, you know that road. It's long, it's winding, and once the sun goes down, it's like driving into a black hole. There's no cell service, no lights, just pure, isolating darkness. That night, Maria clocked out a little after midnight. She was dead tired, basically running on fumes and caffeine. To make things worse, it had been pouring rain for hours, turning the asphalt into a slick, black mirror under her headlights. About 20 minutes into her long drive home, her headlights caught something up ahead. A figure standing on the shoulder of the road. At first, she thought it might be a deer, but as she got closer, her blood ran cold. It was a woman. She was standing there, completely soaked, wearing a long white dress that was plastered to her skin by the rain. She was waving her arms, but it was slow, almost like a desperate plea. Maria's heart started hammering against her ribs. She slowed the car down, cracking her window just enough to hear. The woman stumbled closer, rain plastering her hair to her face, and she said something, but Maria couldn't make it out over the sound of the downpour. So Maria leaned over and shouted, Are you okay? Do you need help? The woman's lips trembled, and she managed to whisper just one chilling word. Run. Maria frowned, completely confused. Run? From what? And that's when she heard it, a click. The sound of her passenger side door handle being tried. Her head whipped around and she saw him. A man crouched right beside her car, pale and soaked to the bone. His hand was already gripping the handle, trying to get in. Maria didn't even think. She just screamed and slammed her foot on the gas. The car screeched, fishtailing wildly on the wet road. She heard the man's hand slap hard against the passenger window as she lurched forward. Her tires finally found their grip, and she shot off into the night, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst. She couldn't even breathe. She just drove. She didn't look back, didn't dare to slow down until she saw the faint, welcoming glow of a truck stop sign in the distance. She swerved into the parking lot, her body shaking uncontrollably, half sobbing with terror and relief. She finally looked in her rearview mirror, back at the dark road she'd just escaped from. There was nothing there. Just the empty road and the falling rain. A few minutes later, a big rig pulled in next to her. The driver, an older guy with a kind face, rolled down his window and asked if she was all right. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Through her tears, she managed to tell him the whole terrifying story. The trucker's face went pale. He leaned out and said, in a low voice, "You're lucky. You should never stop for anyone on that stretch of road." A few years back, they found a wrecked car up there. The driver was a woman. They said she was running from someone, but they never found out who. Even after hearing that, Maria called the police. She had to. They went out and searched the area, but they found nothing. No woman in a white dress, no pale-faced man, not even a single footprint in the mud. All they found were her tire marks, veering sharply off the shoulder right where she said she'd stopped. But the story doesn't end there. The truly weirdest part happened a few weeks later. Maria got a call from the sheriff's office. They told her they were looking into a cold case from the late 90s. A woman had gone missing on that exact same highway, last seen wearing a long white dress. They asked if Maria would be willing to look at an old photograph. When they showed it to her, she felt a chill go right through her soul. It was her. The same face she'd seen in the rain, the woman who saved her life by telling her to run. This next story was sent in by a woman named Lena, and it happened back in 2019. She was on a long drive from Chicago to Pennsylvania to visit family for Thanksgiving. It was a brutal trip, almost 9 hours, and she'd left late after work. By the time she crossed into Ohio, it was past 2 in the morning. She was barely keeping her eyes open, surviving on gas station coffee and podcasts. Finally, she saw a blue sign for a rest stop just 1 mile ahead. Thank goodness. She just needed to stretch, use the restroom, and maybe grab a soda to jolt herself awake. When she pulled in, the place was eerily empty. Just 2 big rigs idling way down at the far end of the lot. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered and buzzed, and the only other light came from a lonely vending machine glowing by the restroom doors. Inside, the air was thick with the faint, sterile smell of bleach. She headed into the women's restroom. It was dead silent, except for the low hum of the overhead fan. After using the stall and washing her hands, she reached for a paper towel. That's when she saw it. Something was wedged behind the dispenser phone, tilted just slightly upward. It took a second for her brain to catch up, but then she realized the screen was on. It was recording. And on that screen she could see her own reflection, clear as day. Someone had been watching her. In that instant, Lena froze. The whole atmosphere in the room shifted, and she felt a chilling certainty that she wasn't alone anymore. Then she heard it. A low, heavy breathing, coming from somewhere behind the stalls. She managed to whisper, "Hello?" but got no answer. Just that slow, steady, deliberate breath. Her heart started pounding so hard she could hear the thumping in her ears. She slowly backed away toward the door, her eyes locked on the stalls. And that's when she saw them, a pair of black work boots, visible in the gap under the farthest stall door. The person inside wasn't moving at all, just standing there. That was it. Lena bolted. She ran out of the restroom, sprinted through the building, and fumbled with her keys to get back into her car, locking the doors the second she was inside. As she looked in her rearview mirror, she saw movement. a man stepped out of the restroom. He was tall, wearing a dark ski mask and holding a phone in his hand. He walked slowly toward a pickup truck parked just 2 spaces away from her, got in, and just sat there, staring right at her. Lena's hands were shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. As the engine roared to life, the man lifted his phone and pointed it directly at her car as if he was still recording. She didn't wait to see what he would do next. She threw the car in drive and peeled out of that rest stop, tires squealing on the pavement. She drove for nearly an hour, heart racing, before she felt safe enough to stop again, this time at a police station right off the next exit. The officers took her statement and immediately sent a unit back to the rest stop to investigate. What they found was far worse than Lena could have ever imagined. Behind the wall of the women's restroom, they discovered a narrow crawl space, just big enough for a person to squeeze into. Inside that hidden space, they found several phones taped to the wall. All of them were pointing through tiny, almost invisible holes drilled behind the mirrors and the paper towel dispensers. And here's the most disturbing part. Each phone had a sticky note on it with a name. One of those sticky notes said Lena. The police were baffled. Lena had never been to that rest stop in her entire life. How could they know her name? The files on those phones dated back years. There were hundreds and hundreds of videos, all of women who had no idea they were being filmed. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to stay aware of your surroundings, and if you have a story you'd like to share, you can find the submission link in the description below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there. This last story is one of the most unsettling I've come across. It happened to a girl named Nadia in early 2022. She was on a long drive back home to Oregon after visiting her sister up in Northern California. It was the dead of night, around 3 in the morning, and the road was getting lonely. Her phone's GPS was acting up, constantly losing signal. Each time it came back, it would reroute her onto smaller, more remote roads. Before she knew it, she was driving through what felt like the middle of nowhere. There were no streetlights, no signs, just a thick, rolling fog and dense trees closing in on either side of the road. She kept trying to get back to the main highway, but the GPS was useless, the little arrow on the screen just spinning in circles. After about 10 minutes of this frustrating detour, she rounded a sharp bend and saw something loom out of the fog. It was a stone tunnel built right into the side of a hill. It looked ancient, covered in moss and deep cracks. There were no lights, no markings, nothing to even suggest what it was called. It was just a dark, gaping hole in the earth. Checking her GPS again, she saw the road on her screen just stopped. There was no tunnel marked on the map at all. For a second, she considered turning back. But it was late, she was tired, and she figured it must just be an old, unmapped part of the route. So, she took a deep breath and drove into the darkness, her headlights cutting a narrow path through the fog. Inside, the silence was absolute, broken only by the echo of her own tires on the damp stone. It was claustrophobic. About halfway through, her radio, which had been playing quietly, started to flicker and then dissolved into loud static. A moment later, her phone screen went completely black. She tried to tell herself it was just bad reception, maybe some kind of interference from the tunnel structure, but the air inside the car suddenly felt heavy, charged with something she couldn't explain. And that's when she heard it. A dull, hollow knock, seeming to come from somewhere right above her car on the roof. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Then it came again, but this time from underneath the car. She slowed to a crawl, her eyes frantically darting around the dark interior of the tunnel. The fog seemed to be seeping in through the cracks in the stone ahead of her headlights. Then she saw movement. Just a flash in her peripheral vision, a hand, pale and thin, brushing against her driver's side window. That was it. She slammed her foot on the gas. The engine roared to life and the car shot forward, tires screeching as she burst out of the tunnel and back into the open night. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. A few seconds later, she risked a glance in her rearview mirror, expecting to see the dark opening of the tunnel shrinking behind her. But there was nothing. Just a solid wall of rock and trees, as if the tunnel had never existed. She pulled over a few minutes down the road, completely shaken. Her phone suddenly lit up, back to normal, but the GPS still showed no sign of the tunnel she was certain she'd just driven through. The next day, still terrified, she reported what happened to the local police. They went out to that stretch of road to investigate. They found nothing, no tunnel. They couldn't even find a hill where a tunnel could have been. Just flat forest. When Nadia finally got home, she checked her dashcam footage, desperate for proof. The camera had recorded her entire trip perfectly, right up until the moment she drove into the tunnel. Then, the footage froze. The very last frame showed the stone archway. As she stared at the frozen image, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. There were words, faintly carved into the rock just above the entrance. They were weathered and hard to read, but after zooming in and staring at it for what felt like hours, she finally made them out. They said, "Welcome home, Nadia." The footage ended right there. According to Nadia, that strange, forgotten road still exists, but no one who has gone looking for that phantom tunnel has ever found it again. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a story you'd like to share, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there.